This is Jacob Ray, and today we're going to talk about Stanley. Who was Stanley? Not everyone knows the man behind the characters. Stanley has been called the most famous writer in comic book history. He was also editor-in-chief, publisher, and chairman of the board at Marvel Comics. Stanley was influenced by many things. He was born with the name Stanley Martin Lieber. His parents were immigrants in New York City. He was born on December 28, 1922. His parents were Jewish Romanian immigrants. Stanley would have been 7 years old at the time of the 1929 stock market crash. He grew up during the Great Depression, and having a job and a paycheck were important to him. He graduated high school early, at the age of 16. He worked at a low-paying job at a publishing company. He got this job using his family ties. He wanted to be a writer, so later on, he changed his name from Stanley to Stan Lee, because he thought that it sounded better for a true writer. The company name was Timely Comics, later to be changed to Marvel Comics. The first books Lee worked on at the company was called Marvel Mysteries, and he named the company Marvel to honor that. He said he did not actually know that Timely Company published comic books when he got the job, but he thought he would get some experience working on comics and move to a real publishing job. Stanley then enlisted in the Army after he heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. He served from 1942 to 1945 in the U.S. Army. He was in the Army Signal Corps. First, he had a job repairing telegraph wires, but then was sent to the Signal Corps Training Film Division, where he was one of only 9 men given the designation playwright. After World War II, he returned to this same job that he had before enlisting. He then became famous as the creative force behind characters like Spider-Man, The Incredible Hulk, Fantastic Four, Captain America, Iron Man, X-Men, and a lot more. He said late in his life that the Spider-Man character was his favorite of all characters.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like guys. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look overhead. Hey there goes the Spider-Man. In the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, well contained, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big bang. Wherever there's a hang, you'll find a Spider-Man.
Through his characters, Stan Lee sent messages of tolerance and acceptance. He supported civil rights. An example in X-Men is when the mutants are hated by the normal humans. Lee is quoted having said, "It was a good metaphor for what was happening with the civil rights movement in the country at that time." X-Men was introduced in 1963, and Lee's characters have similarities to civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Marvel includes comic books, but also live-action TV, cartoons, video games, and toys. It also includes movies. Stanley has multiple cameo appearances in at least 20 Marvel movies. Marvel was then purchased by Disney in 2009. Stanley was influenced by many things. As first son of immigrant parents, he had to work really hard. The events of his life helped develop his comic characters. His characters had real-life struggles and human traits. He wanted his characters to be realistic. This helped comic book readers relate to them, and also they liked them. These fictional heroes were people who used their abilities or something special they were born with or got by training to help others. Lee's characters were not selfish. Stan Lee was a writer, producer, editor, and actor. He said the creative part of the comic process was his favorite. During one of his last interviews, he said the creative part was the thing he missed the most. Stan Lee then died at the age of 95 in 2018.
And now, the alphabet according to Stan Lee. A is for amazing, like the Spider-Man who swings. B is for bombastic, like Benjamin the Thing. C is for kamikaze, my convention, would you believe? D is for Dicko, my dear old buddy Steve. E is for my favorite word, the mighty Excelsior.